Macbeth isn't a villain. He's a textbook narcissist, and Shakespeare knew it 400 years ago. We've been taught to read Macbeth as a story about ambition, about power, about a man who wanted too much and paid the price. But that reading misses the most disturbing thing about this play. Macbeth doesn't start as a monster. He starts as a decorated war hero, a loyal soldier, a respected man. And then, piece by piece, he dismantles everything he is. Not because of the witches, not because of Lady Macbeth, but because of something already living inside him. A wound so deep, so hungry, that no amount of power would ever fill it. That wound has a name. And Shakespeare, with no access to psychology textbooks, no knowledge of Freud or the DSM, wrote it with surgical precision. Narcissistic personality disorder, as we understand it today, is not simply about vanity or arrogance. That's the Hollywood version. The clinical version is far darker and far more tragic. At its core, NPD is built on a foundation of fragility, a self-image so brittle that any threat to it, any challenge, any humiliation, any suggestion of inadequacy, triggers a collapse so total it can turn a person into someone unrecognizable. Psychologists call this the narcissistic injury, the wound beneath the mask. And in Macbeth, Shakespeare didn't just write a villain. He wrote the entire psychological arc, from the grandiose beginning to the paranoid middle, to the inevitable catastrophic end. He wrote what modern therapists call narcissistic collapse. Here's what most people misread about Macbeth at the beginning of the play. He's already celebrated, already powerful, already one of the most respected men in Scotland. By any objective measure, he has everything. But the witches don't create his ambition. They simply confirm what he already believes about himself. That he deserves more. That he is destined for more. That the world has not yet given him what he is owed. This is the first signature of narcissism. Not wanting success, but needing it as proof of worth. The narcissist doesn't pursue power because they enjoy it. They pursue it because without it, they are nothing. There's a moment early in the play where Macbeth is called brave and valiant by the king, publicly praised in front of the entire court. And it isn't enough. It is never enough. Because the praise of others for a narcissist is not received as warmth. It's consumed as fuel, and it burns out almost immediately, leaving the same hollow hunger it was supposed to fill. Psychologist Alexander Lowen described this as the narcissistic dilemma, the desperate need for admiration paired with the complete inability to be satisfied by it. Macbeth hears he is great, and immediately begins plotting to be greater. That's not ambition. That's a wound trying to heal itself with the wrong medicine. Here is where the psychology becomes genuinely chilling. The moment Macbeth gets what he wanted, the moment the crown is actually on his head, something shifts. And it doesn't shift toward satisfaction. It shifts toward terror. This is the part of narcissistic psychology that most people never see coming, because it seems to make no sense. He won. He got the thing. Why is he more afraid now than before? Because the narcissist's greatest fear is not failure to rise. It is the exposure that comes after rising. Once you have the crown, people can see whether you deserve it. And deep beneath the grandiosity, beneath the absolute certainty of superiority, the narcissist carries a secret so unbearable they have built an entire personality to hide it. The terror that they are, in fact, not enough. So Macbeth does what every collapsing narcissist does. He doesn't rest. He doesn't consolidate. He doesn't enjoy. He starts eliminating threats.
Banquo, his closest friend, must die, because the witches said Banquo's children would be kings, not because Banquo has done anything, but because Banquo's very existence is a reminder that the story isn't entirely about Macbeth. This is called narcissistic rage, the violent, disproportionate response to anything that challenges the grandiose self-image. It's not strategic. It's not cold. It's desperate. A man trying to silence every mirror that might show him something he cannot bear to see. There is a speech near the end of Macbeth that stops most readers cold. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day. People quote it as poetry, as philosophy, but read it as a psychological document, and what you find is the voice of a man in the final stage of narcissistic collapse. Everything is meaningless. Life is a walking shadow. Nothing matters. This is not stoic acceptance. This is not wisdom earned through suffering. This is the void that was always there, finally visible, now that there is nothing left to hide it with. The crown didn't fill it. The murders didn't fill it. The power, the fear he inspired, the loyalty he commanded. None of it touched the wound underneath. Because nothing ever does. That is the final truth of narcissistic collapse. And the reason Shakespeare's portrayal is so accurate, it should be studied in psychology classrooms. The narcissist doesn't fall because they lose. They fall because even winning cannot save them from themselves. Macbeth reaches the peak and finds the peak empty. Clinical psychologists describe the final stage of narcissistic collapse as ego dissolution, the complete breakdown of the constructed self, leaving behind what was always there. A person who never really knew who they were without the reflection of other people's fear and admiration. Lady Macbeth breaks first, visibly. The sleepwalking, the hand-washing, the guilt. But Macbeth breaks differently. He doesn't crack. He empties. And that, quietly, without drama, is so much worse.
So what does Shakespeare's Macbeth actually teach us about narcissistic collapse? It teaches us that the most dangerous version of this condition isn't the loud, explosive kind, the rage, the cruelty, the obvious red flags. It's the quiet kind, the decorated soldier, the celebrated man, the person who seems to have everything and is secretly terrified that none of it is real. It teaches us that the hunger underneath narcissism cannot be fed. No achievement silences it. No crown fills it. No amount of power, praise, or fear reaches the wound at the bottom. And it teaches us something that is perhaps the most uncomfortable lesson Shakespeare ever wrote. That Macbeth did not become a monster. He simply stopped pretending he wasn't one.
If this way of looking at things resonates with you,
the psychology, the literature, the overlap between the two, liking this video helps more people find it. It genuinely makes a difference. And if you know someone who'd find this interesting, a friend who studied psychology, or one who just loves Shakespeare, sharing it with them costs nothing. There's a lot more where this came from. If you want to keep going, subscribing keeps these videos in your feed. No pressure, just an open door. The next video goes somewhere even more specific. We're looking at a manipulation tactic so precise, so deliberate, that a novelist wrote it in 1938, long before psychologists had a word for it. It's called gaslighting, and Daphne du Maurier hid a masterclass in it inside what most people think is just a gothic romance. That video is next.